The topic is the crisis at the Salvation Army, and we're talking to the area commander, Major RRaymer, and the market and research developer, Mr. MServais2. And of course, Mr. Survey and Major RRaymer, before we had our first commercial break, we promised Mr. Survey that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about your extensive experiences in the Salvation Army. I say that because I think I spoke to you earlier, and you not only did you give me some information relative to the Salvation Army, but you've been involved in quite a number of social activities. And so let's get that information on record here today.
You live 59 years and stay awake, you're going to get involved in some things. But my family, to keep it comparable on the history thing, my family got involved with the Salvation Army during the Great Depression because the Salvation Army pulled my grandparent and her children out of a junkyard in Wisconsin during the Depression and fed them and housed them and got them medical care to cure polio and rickets and provided them with shelter. And my grandfather got out of jail finally because he was not a good man, but he became a good man through grace. And he committed his life and his family's lives to the Salvation Army, and it started there. And I was born in the Salvation Army. I've done many other things in nonprofit, Buddies of Nashville being one of my all-time favorites for about 15 years here in town, and halfway house work, the Child Protective Services, Board of Parks, numerous things like that, all of which were preparatory for today. And this moment and whatever God's going to put in front of us.
You know, Major RRaymer, I think one of the things that sort of comes through dealing with this is that there's a very, very close family connection and family tie in the Salvation Army. Is that general, or is that just peculiar between the two of you having that kind of family relationship in the Army? Do you find that throughout?
Oh, that is throughout. The very nature of the organization, and because it is a faith-based organization, it just perpetuates itself. So that's pretty common.
Why don't you give our audience some information in reference to the Army itself? Because I think that most of us see the Army only at Christmas time with bell ringers and et cetera, and we certainly know that it's more than that. Let's talk about a short historical sketch, if you will, dealing with the Salvation Army.
Well, of course, the Salvation Army, as I've already mentioned, is a faith-based organization, but I don't believe that terminology was around back when William Booth, our founder, actually started the Salvation Army by the direction of God, and that would have been in 1865. In fact, back at the end of our Civil War here in the United States. And the Salvation Army has grown from that, of course, worldwide. Its main mission is to preach and show the gospel of Jesus Christ. In other words, to win souls to the kingdom of heaven through Jesus Christ. Now we do that both in word and action. The Salvation Army's motto from the very beginning takes its heartbeat from William Booth, who said, soup, soap, and salvation. You got to clean them up and feed them first before you can talk to anybody about the love of Christ. And that's been our motivation from the very beginning and still is today here in Nashville.
Mr. Survey, you mentioned earlier a number of programs that you're involved in, and I'd like to sort of follow up on this idea of the crisis, because from a newspaper article that we read, you are having some real serious problems in terms of your financial resources and cutback and et cetera. Why don't you give our audience some idea in reference to the challenges that you're now facing, and perhaps they can recognize what you need and perhaps they might be able to help you.
Thank you. The Salvation Army is purposefully positioned at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. We take our post there, and then we look up and try to lift folks who are down at that base level and lift them up the ladder as far as they can go or care to go. We do that through a number of different programmatic initiatives. One that is the more complex I'll describe quickly and first, so as not to confuse. Beginning about 6 years ago, the Salvation Army, with the help of a lot of volunteer leaders and a community, formed the Red Shield Family Initiative on Stockwell Street in Northeast Nashville, adjacent to Sam Levy Homes. And instead of the Salvation Army pretending that it can continue to lift that neighborhood by itself, it reached out to a number of other nonprofit providers, public and private folks. And the short version of this is that it's now a mall of nonprofit service providers, including Metro Social Services, Child Care with Junior League, and Boys and Girls Club, a large Boys and Girls Club, and we got mental health through Centerstone, and the YWCA's got numerous programs, and it goes on. Department of Human Services is there, all on one square block campus. United Neighborhood Health Services, full service health clinic, emergency services center, lots of things. Second Harvest food boxes are available on our campus. So it's quite a model of collaboration and economy, by the way, because the Salvation Army could not afford anyway. I promise you, as the development director, it could not afford to do that service for that community. Now, beyond that, we have the more traditional services. We have another child care center down the street, and it originated in offering service somewhat exclusively to homeless families. There are one or two others in town that have joined us in that now, and that's wonderful. We have a men's lodge, emergency shelter for men who may just be coming through town or may have gotten laid off or something and don't have any place to stay. And then we have transitional shelters for both single women and intact families, which could be a mother and a father and children. And that's partly funded by Housing and Urban Development grant and also the Salvation Army, and United Way is of assistance to us also. We also have outposts. You might think of them as outposts around the community because that service I just described is on Dickerson Road. It's based right there. And the Hispanic ministry of the Salvation Army is in West Nashville on Park Avenue. The Laotian ministry is out Nolensville Road on Paragon Mills. We have another ministry on Neely's Bend in the Madison area serving that general neighborhood. And we have a Magnus worship and service ministry back down in Northeast Nashville also. Numbers.
Good.
More than 30,000 individuals will be touched by the Salvation Army this year by one or more of those services. The one that we're known best for, to get back where you introduced us, is Angel Tree Program and the kettles, of course, and all that. Hopefully people see that as one big effort, and it is. It's a huge effort. We went from serving 16,400 people last Christmas to 17,400, excuse me, a year ago it was 16,400. This past Christmas it was 17,400 individuals. Children, families, seniors who are isolated and needful.
And so in a real sense, there's a real need as we make preparations for our second commercial break here, Mr. Survey. There's real need for aid and assistance. And of course, when we come back, we'll give both of you an opportunity to talk about some of the needs that you have. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. We're talking to Major RRaymer.